Welcome back, everyone. This is Rick Sellers with Movie Making Made Easy. And in this tutorial I am going to explain working with 3D text and also working in a 3D environment in After Effects. Before we get started, I want to show you the difference between the traditional 2D and 3D environments. 2D gives us the view we are most used to with basically just width and height. A 3D environment is more like what we live in every day and has not only width and height but also depth. Think of it as a box that you are in. You can move up and down, side to side, and also forward and back. Here I have created two text layers saying 2D and 3D with one word on each layer. In After Effects, you can change a layer from 2D to 3D by clicking the square for that layer in the column under the 3D looking box. It will add a 3D looking box to that layer. Once you do this, there are a lot of changes that happen to the drop-down section that gives you control over the parameters for that layer. As I toggle this on, notice that the rotation section changes from one adjustable area to 3. Now you can rotate on the X, Y, and Z axis. Also, anchor point, position, scale, and orientation can now be moved not only side to side, up and down, but also forward and back. If I change my view from one view to two views horizontal, now the right view is from the front and the left view is from the top looking down, much like if you took a ceiling off of a room and looked down in. Let's select a layer, and in the left view we can see its position in 3D space. There are three arrows connected to the layer. A green one represents the y-axis, or up and down. Red represents the x-axis, or left to right. And blue represents the z-axis, or forward and back. When you hover your cursor over one of the arrows, you can see which axis it is. Note that all newly created layers start in the absolute center. You can also move the text around using the parameters in the drop-down area under the layer name. Often this is easier because you can use the numbers as a reference for the placement of other layers. Let's take a minute and look at the section and go through what everything represents. As I mentioned earlier, when the 3D box is checked, the parameters for that layer change and give us more options. Let's look at how this works with position. The first set of numbers represents left to right. The second set represents up and down, and the third set represents forward and back. These are sliders that you can just hover over until your cursor turns into a hand with arrows at the finger. Click and hold and then move the slider from side to side. The numbers will change. Play with these a bit just to get comfortable with how the sliders move. Anchor point, scale, and orientation can be adjusted the same way, with the only exception that the last set of numbers for scale usually have little or no effect. Now when we get to rotation, they are separated in three different rows of numbers. The set of numbers on the right represents the amount of angle you want to rotate, and the 0x on the left represents how many full rotations you want. Move the right set of numbers for each axis to see what they do. For X, it will rotate end over end. For Y, it will rotate sideways. And Z will rotate more like what 2D rotation does. The best way to get familiar with this is to just play with it a lot. Until next time, I am Rick Sellers with Movie Making Made Easy. Please check out my other tutorials and leave any comments or questions for me below.